The East African Swahili Commission will be having a 3-day meeting starting 10th to the 12th of April 2024 with the stakeholders from the Ministry of East African Community, Ministry of Education and Sport, Civil Society, Kiswahili Association and other stakeholders. And we'd like to look at the status of Kiswahili in Uganda and of course the development of Kiswahili as an official language of the East African community after the 21st Summit of East African Community Heads of State adopted the same. And of course, we will be looking at the East African Commission Council of Ministers Directive for partner states to have a national Kiswahili Council. And I'll be having this conversation with Caroline Asimwe, the Executive Secretary, East African Swahili Commission. Thank you so much, Caroline, for being with us this morning. Caroline, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine.
I'm glad to be here at UBC. And as you have said, I'm the Executive Secretary, East African Swahili Commission, an institution of the East African community that is responsible for the coordination of the development and use of Kiswahili in the East African community and beyond.
All right. Now, I'll start from here in Uganda. And of course, I'm sure me and many other stakeholders are curious to know about the status, the current status of Kiswahili usage and promotion in Uganda.
Thank you very much. For Uganda, our talk may be basing on the capacity assessment that was done by the East African community here in Uganda. Where the assessment was done in 8 domains, including media, health, religious sector, where we looked at business and trade, we looked at the creative industry, the political or the governance, the criminal justice system, and other areas. And what was coming out, I don't want to forget education, what was coming out mostly was that Kiswahili was mainly in the education sector, where we looked at Kiswahili being taught in secondary at that time, but it wasn't compulsory, a situation that I've found different this time because it's now compulsory at lower secondary, that is senior 1 and senior 2. And there were other statements that it was supposed to be taught in primary, where it was noted that even it is taught in all primary teachers' colleges, though the primary schools were not teaching it, but some primary schools, the private primary schools, were teaching Kiswahili as a subject. It was also noted that it is basically used in some areas. When you go to areas that are near the borders, Kiswahili is being used. And borders with the DRC, borders with Kenya, and the border with Tanzania. Kiswahili is being used there. And some areas that are hosting refugees, if we can talk about a particular area like Kiriandongo, and some places in Hoima, Kiswahili is being used. So when we come to the central areas, business areas like Kikubo and then Namaiba, it is where we found Kiswahili being used mostly, and there you can even note that it's basically used by traders, and then Namaiba being a bus stop center where we have cross-border buses, it is really showing that it's a language that being used in the country. In addition to that, Kiswahili is also being used by the armed forces or the disciplined forces, and in the UPDF, according to the results, it was showing that it's their medium of communication, though there were challenges that were noted with the police force because they said most of them could not speak the language because it wasn't emphasized in their institutions of learning.
Okay.
Though we found out that there was an institution for the police, Kabari training school, that had Kiswahili classes.
All right. Now, speaking still, let's go back to Kiswahili in education. I'm curious to know if we have enough Kiswahili teachers in the country. You see, when you look at other languages, let's say English, you're going to find a great number of instructors in the same. But what is the situation like when it comes to Swahili teaching in especially secondary schools and even primary schools?
Thank you very much. And as I said before, based on the capacity assessment that was done in Uganda, the results were showing that Uganda has very many Kiswahili teachers, and most of them were not employed. These teachers were at all levels. At primary school, as I told you, the primary teachers' colleges are training Kiswahili. Even all universities, basically all the universities in Uganda have Kiswahili teachers. And then some other tertiary institutions, we even had national teachers' colleges before that have produced teachers. And according to what the stakeholders were sharing with us yesterday, there are more than 2,000 Kiswahili teachers that are registered because the stakeholders are telling us that they have a database where they are registering Kiswahili teachers. But the challenge they are saying is that most of them are not yet employed because, yeah, they are not yet employed to teach Kiswahili, so they are not teaching as of now. But those who are employed are teaching Kiswahili, and they are doing a great job according to the results we got from the study.
Okay, that's encouraging, because the concern at first was, yes, we are adopting Kiswahili as a compulsory subject in our schools and education system, but we do not have enough teachers. Now, when you say we have the teachers, they're just not employed, then there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel, because there we know that in time the teachers are going to be employed. Now, going back to how Kiswahili as a language, how does it contribute to linguistic diversity and social cohesion in a multilingual society like East Africa?
Thank you very much. When you look at a language like Kiswahili, and you link it with East Africa, it is a language, first of all, I want to start by saying that it's a Bantu language.
Yes.
That is spoken across the East African partner states and even beyond. Most of the words we use in the Bantu languages are closely related to the Kiswahili languages. And it is common to find even other Bantu speakers saying, this is my language, or closely related to my language. Even when you cross the borders of East Africa and you go to countries like Zimbabwe, when you go to South Africa, you'll find there some Kiswahili words in the words they are speaking, just because they're all Bantu languages. And the fact that it is not confined to one particular entity or to one particular area, it becomes a language that unifies or that unites us all, because it corrects from all our languages. It has words that are connected with all our languages. I was sharing with someone among the stakeholders, and we said, we use these words without even knowing that they are Kiswahili words. People at home are talking about sufuria, sahani, kikombe, and even others say muswaki. Those are Kiswahili words, but we use them in our local languages.
Are they Swahili words or words from our local languages that Kiswahili took?
So
languages borrow from each other.
Languages, yes, you're very right. Languages borrow from each other, and especially closely related languages. So when the languages keep on growing like this, they keep on borrowing and getting from each other. And when we have a common language, when it came to the cohesion issue, it helps us get to communicate easily, to communicate with each other, and without challenges of where you're saying, why do you pick on another person's language? Why don't you pick my own language? But now with the status of Kiswahili being elevated to a global language, you remember the UNESCO, an institution of the UN, adopted Kiswahili and gave it a special day, the 7th of July, every day to be celebrated. And that is already showing that it is a language whose value has been appreciated, that it can contribute to sustainable development.
Its value has gone beyond East Africa.
Yes, it has gone beyond East Africa. So when you look at what it is doing, and then as East Africa, we are thinking of adopting it. As a country, Uganda thinks of adopting it. It means we are trying to strategically position the citizens to communicate with the global citizens, not at the local scene, but at the global scene. And remember, it's also an AU official language, it's a SADC official language, it's an ESC official language. So it unites almost the whole world.
Yeah, that it does. But one wonders then, many East African countries are fluent. Yes, you've said in Uganda, border areas, trade areas, you're going to find people speaking Swahili. But I think for many Ugandans, it is, you know how we used to be told that the English I speak is for asking for food. And I believe that for most Ugandans, the Swahili they speak is to get one foot inside the door, but many are not fluent. And one wonders, what took us so long? Why is it that when you look at all the, are they now 7 East African countries, Uganda seems to be lagging behind when it comes to speaking Swahili?
Thank you very much. One, I have to first say that now the East African community has 8 countries with the entrance of the Federal Republic of Somalia. So when it comes to people not being able to speak Kiswahili in Uganda fluently, there are very many factors. One, we have the attitude issue, whereby there are people who are still thinking of if my child or if I speak the Western language or the English or any other language well, then I am an enlightened person. And the prestige was being given to that language. One challenge we are having is giving prestige to the other and then neglecting ours. 2, people were associating it to maybe people who are not educated, people who have a bad reputation in the society, the criminals, and that thing has already changed because now, according to the status of the language and the people who are using it, it is different. And the language itself is innocent. It's the users who use it badly. So we cannot blame it on the language. And then the other challenge is the mother tongue, people preferring to use their tongues, which is very important, and we appreciate that. But for strategic reasons, now we are learning Kiswahili. And why they are not being fluent with it, it's that people were learning it at school, but they were not having an environment where to apply it.
I agree
and
with
now
that.
we are looking out for opportunities where we can have enhanced usage in the community, whether it is in media, whether we are having engagements in other official or other social activities, because it is recognized by the Constitution as the 2nd official language, and if it's given domains of use, I think it will be used in a better way and people can easily communicate, because those who have had the environment, those who have had the opportunity are really using the language as it is supposed to be used.
All right, so now let's talk implementation. And of course, I would like to know the steps that are being taken to implement Kiswahili as an official language of the East African community in Uganda, but also in other, let's stick it to Uganda. Bias.
Thank you very much. When I'm talking about Uganda, definitely are based on the reports that we have done. We have the study that was done, and then on the reports from the Republic of Uganda on the implementation on some of the summit directives, of the council directives. I have first to commend the Republic of Uganda for coming up with strategies for implementing Kiswahili as an official language. Because when it was declared, all partner states were directed to make steps or to do preparations on how they are going to implement this. And of course, the East African Swahili Commission, as a coordinating institution, had to take up the mantle to work with partner states to see how to implement this. And the Republic of Uganda picked on priority areas which they were going to improve, to implement Kiswahili as an official language. And one of the areas that were centered on they want to do capacity building for the people in different entities. And they picked on the issue of the Kiswahili language policy. They want to focus on translation and interpretation. They want to focus on having a Kiswahili council, because this is going to help coordinate the activities or implementation of that directive. So there are steps that are being taken by the Republic of Uganda, and we really appreciate that. And then in that, it is really coming up because you see a vibrant communication from different sectors.
Yes.
And the reports that the stakeholders were giving us yesterday in the first day of the meeting were showing that efforts are being made. It was reported that last week they had a meeting for all university students last month at Makerere University, where they had students discussing how they can promote Kiswahili. They have had several meetings coordinated by the Ministry of East African Affairs, which is the coordinating ministry for the partner state and the East African community. and then the Ministry of Gender that is following up on all the other implementation steps for the development and use of Kiswahili in Uganda. And I also must say that when it comes to stakeholders in Uganda, you see there are very many people who are studying Kiswahili now at different levels. I was told that they have many PhDs now, master's students for Kiswahili, and they are looking forward to having more after the Kiswahili has been adopted in the education system, especially for lower primary and being compulsory even after senior 2, so that others can do it even to higher levels.
Now, when it comes to the responsibility of the National Swahili Council, as per the directive of the East African Community Council of Ministers, what are some of the key responsibilities for your commission?
Thank you very much. As a commission, and as I said before, our role is to coordinate. We don't implement in partner states. For us, we coordinate, we give advice, we give guidance on what is supposed to be done. But all this is done in collaboration with the stakeholders in partner state. So when we come to the Republic of Uganda, we come with an idea and we engage with them on the particular idea, and they give us what needs to be done, and we give them the advice or the technical advice on how to approach it. For example, when it comes to the Kiswahili Council, it will be great for us because as a commission and as by the protocol that established the East African Swahili Commission, we are supposed to be working with the responsible ministries and then the Kiswahili Council, because it will be the implementing body as the ministries coordinate at the policy level. So the implementing body will be the National Swahili Council that will be coordinating all the associations we have here, any activity that needs to be done in relation to the development and use of Kiswahili. If we have a translation, if you need to have those certified translators, they should be registered with that entity so that people come to know who is doing this activity, who is working for this, all the data for Kiswahili stakeholders that would be needed in the country would be hosted by the Kiswahili Council. And then this council would also be coordinating those activities like translation, like issues to do with interpretation, or any other key factor that would be important for the development and use of Kiswahili.
All right. And of course, speaking of Kiswahili in different sectors, there also comes with challenges, right? And I would like to know what are some of the challenges hindering the widespread adoption and utilization of Kiswahili in various sectors, be it at least in education. I think we are on track, because now we have teachers, we have different institutions adopting the language. But when it comes to different sectors, let's say ministries and government agencies, or even the private sector, what would you say have been some of the challenges of adopting the language?
Thank you very much. Maybe I can mention something to do with the will, because those who are willing have really put up measures. And as I've been noticing, even in the communication from the government, they've been indicating that Cabinet is taking classes for Kiswahili. So they have taken the initiative. Other ministries, departments and agencies have also taken initiative to initiate classes, according to the reports that we are getting from the stakeholders on the first day of the meeting.
But between still, me and you,
yes,
how easy is it for adults to adopt a new language? Because at least they say for children under the age of 5, it's very easy for them to be multilingual. But when it comes to adults, how easy is it to adopt? Like, I'm here, above 30, and I'm learning a new language, and I have to use it as I do my work.
Thank you very much. It's quite interesting because I think I'll use my example. Personally, I learned Kiswahili when I was above 20. I started Kiswahili after my Form 6. But when I'm speaking, you cannot even know that I just learned Kiswahili. So that's why I'm saying that it's just the will. And we need to strategize, to strategically position ourselves and our citizens for opportunities that will come with the use and development and use of Kiswahili. So it is the will and the attitude that you have towards something, or the motivation you have towards something that will help you learn it. Adults can learn with motivation if they are targeting something. The children will learn because they are learning, that's the normal process. But when the adults are motivated, they will learn it, especially when they know they are focusing on something. So I don't see it as a challenge, so long as we purpose to learn the language. If it was a requirement here at UBC that everyone should be able to speak some Kiswahili within a month, most of you would be speaking Kiswahili.
Maybe something related to Kiswahili.
So long as we can hear the word and you can communicate, and that's what we need for the start.
Yes.
So long as you can get those basics, that basic Kiswahili that can help you communicate, then we are good to go.
And ask for food.
Yes.
Well, we are having a conversation on the promotion and on promoting the role of Kiswahili in East Africa, and of course looking at strategies for integration development and cultural preservation. And I'm having this conversation with Caroline Asimwe, the Executive Secretary, East African Swahili Commission. So if you're just joining the conversation, that's where we are today. Because Uganda in 2022 adopted Kiswahili as one of its official languages. Currently, we have English as our official language, but then Kiswahili is the other language. So we are looking at some of the challenges, but also the steps that have been taken to implement the language in Uganda, but of course in East Africa, because now we are 8 countries in East Africa, and not all of them were speaking Kiswahili. Now, Miss Caroline Asimwe, going back to our conversation, what measures are in place to ensure the inclusivity and representation of marginalized linguistic groups within Kiswahili promotion efforts?
Thank you very much. And for Kiswahili, I don't think we are here to marginalize, or the language is here to marginalize any group. When you look at the stakeholders that even identified by the protocol that established the East African Swahili Commission, all people are embraced within that protocol. We have representatives of Kiswahili stakeholders, we have representatives of writers, we have authors, we have media fraternity, we have the government officials. And even when you go to the treaty that established the East African community, it recognizes some special groups, civil society organizations. We cannot work without them. We cannot do without the non-government organization. We cannot do without women. We cannot do without youth. And when we are doing anything, we cannot forget a cultural institution, because language is part of culture. And culture is part of people's lives.
That's true.
And when you are touching something that touches people's lives, you have to be sensitive. So we embrace everyone, because language use does not discriminate. Language aids access to social services. If I go to a hospital, it will not be that because I'm from this area, so I need to learn the language, or if I need justice, it will not be because I can speak the language, or I cannot. So
yes,
all of us in the community, whether it's my grandmother at home, whether it is my neighbor, whether I'm the one, I need the language, and that's why I say that we need to create opportunities for all the citizens to learn the language, because they all need to use it for access to justice, for access to social services, for business and trade, for peace and security, for anything, and to work for sustainable development, because you cannot work for sustainable development if you don't understand what it's all about.
That's very
And you
true.
cannot work alone and succeed. You need to work with others. And through that, you need to communicate. And you need to communicate in a language that is common to all. So
yes,
now we need to do that strategic communication using a strategic means, by using a common language that is used across the borders, because we are no longer operating with just as a partner state or a country, but we are going beyond borders, and even now going beyond the globe, because Kiswahili has been elevated to that global status. And we say it is globalizing from below, from a humble beginning, and it's getting to the center stage from that local African language.
Oh, it's getting to the center stage, and all I hear is that we need to have collective effort if we are to adopt and understand the language. And speaking of collaboration, Ms. Asimwe, how can the East African Swahili Commission enhance its collaboration with stakeholders to achieve its objectives?
Thank you very much. Enhancement of collaborations is one of the key issues and even among the key areas that are hinted on by almost all partner states as a key factor for the promotion and development of Kiswahili. Even as among the priority areas that were picked by the Republic of Uganda in implementing Kiswahili as an official language is that issue of collaborations and partnerships. And for us as a commission, we may not come direct to partner with a particular entity, but through the relevant ministries that are coordinating this. It becomes easier because implementation is in the country. And if you want to implement, it is in Uganda. I may partner with you, we do a proposal, we are seeking for funding, but the implementation will be in Uganda. So we have to partner with, to pass through the responsible ministries and that coordinate the activities with the East African Swahili Commission. So that is a key factor, that is a key role, and we partner with all that have objectives that are similar to those objectives of the East African community. Remember, we are focusing on regional integration and sustainable development, where we have our core values. So we look at them and see if they align well with the objectives of the partner we are looking at, or who approaches us, or whom we approach, then we can work out a collaboration. But if it is within a particular government, then we engage even with the relevant people so that they get to know what we are doing or what we are focusing on. It is a key issue.
All right, the East African Swahili Commission is having a 3-day meeting which starts on the 10th of April 2024 to the 12th with stakeholders from the Ministry of East Africa, Ministry of Education and Sports, and Ministry of East African Community, Ministry of Education and Sports, the civil society and Kiswahili associations and other stakeholders. And they are looking at promoting the role of Kiswahili in East Africa and looking at strategies for integration, development and cultural preservation. And I've been speaking with Ms. Caroline Asimwe, the Executive Secretary, East African Swahili Commission, and we have delved further into the issue regarding implementing and adopting Kiswahili as Uganda's official language, because it was adopted in 2022. But how do we get off the paper to speaking and using the language for trade and regional integration? That's what we've been looking at, and we can't go any further than this. Ms. Caroline, thank you so much for speaking with us.
And thank you too for hosting us, and we look forward to more engagements with UBC.
Maybe as briefly as we go off, where is this taking place?
The meeting that
Yes.
we're having, yes, we are in Entebbe at Protea.
Okay, is it open to the public?
No, it's by invitation by the Ministry of East African Community Affairs, by particular stakeholders, but later, now the ministry is going to open it to the public.
All right.
Because now these ones are planning for what needs to be done, then it will be open to the public to know what we discussed, and this is even what we are discussing here is among what we discussed in that meeting, to know the status, so that now later they get back to the community to get what they say about what will have been discussed and what we are saying here, especially on the strategies to implement Kiswahili as an official language of the community.
Well, that's it for us on this newsreel, but Good Morning Uganda does continue. When we come back, we will be having Good Morning Uganda Tourism Express, and later on, Jerome Paul Sonko will be giving us Good Morning Uganda Business. And a bit further on, we will have traffic updates and then agenda and sports. So it's still a